I walked into the dimly lit restaurant and the host smiled. "This table is for family," and pointed to a polished wooden seat across from my parents. If you love raw stories, hit the subscribe button now, because what happens next will hit you harder than any family dinner you have ever seen. My name is Elena Rivera. I am 34 years old. I grew up in a two-bedroom house in Albuquerque where the kitchen table was the center of every argument and every celebration. My mother, Rosa, worked the night shift at the hospital and my father, Miguel, drove a delivery truck. My older brother, Carlos, moved to Denver right after high school and only calls on holidays. I have always been the one who stays, the one who holds everything together when the rest of the family falls apart. The invitation to dinner came from my Aunt Carla, who had just returned to town after a messy divorce. She said she wanted the whole family to meet at a new upscale place downtown. I was nervous, but I put on a black dress that made me feel a little stronger, and I drove to the restaurant with my parents in the back seat. When we arrived, the host led us to a round table near the window. The table was set with silverware that gleamed like it had never been used. My mother smiled and said, "This is perfect." My father nodded and ordered a bottle of red wine. I sat down and tried to steady the knot in my stomach. The waiter arrived with menus. He was tall, with a scar above his left eyebrow and a quick, practiced smile. He introduced himself as Daniel and said, "I will be taking care of you tonight." He placed a glass of water in front of me and asked if I wanted anything else. I said I was fine and thanked him. Conversation started with small talk about the weather and the new restaurant. My Aunt Carla talked about her job as a real estate agent and how she was selling houses left and right. My mother bragged about Carlos's promotion, and my father talked about the long hours at the warehouse. I listened and tried to join in, but every time I spoke I felt the eyes of my family drift to the empty seat across from me. After a while, the waiter returned with our food. He placed a plate of steak in front of my father, a salad in front of my mother, and a vegetarian pasta dish in front of me. As he set the plates down, he slipped a folded piece of paper under my plate. I glanced at it quickly and saw the number $2,200 written in bold ink. My heart skipped a beat. I looked up at the waiter, but he was already walking away. I unfolded the paper and read the note, "For the table. Thank you for your patience." I felt a cold sweat break on my forehead. I did not understand why a stranger would give me $2,200. I slipped the note into my purse and tried to act normal. The dinner continued, but the atmosphere had changed. My mother asked me if everything was okay. I forced a smile and said I was fine. My father made a joke about the steak being as tough as his job, and everyone laughed, but the laughter sounded hollow. I could feel my anxiety rising with each passing minute. When the dessert arrived, the waiter brought a chocolate cake with a single candle. He placed it in front of my Aunt Carla and said, "Congratulations, you have won a prize." He handed her a small envelope. She opened it and gasped. Inside was a voucher for a free weekend stay at a luxury resort, valued at $2,200. She looked at me with a strange expression and said, "Elena, this is for you." I stared at the voucher, then at the waiter. "I do not understand," I said. The waiter smiled, but his eyes were cold. "Your aunt wanted to make sure you are taken care of," he said. She paid for the whole meal and the voucher as a thank you. I felt a surge of anger and embarrassment. My aunt had never been generous without expecting something in return. I looked at my mother, who was staring at her plate, and at my father, who was clenching his jaw. The room felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping the floor. "I need to use the restroom," I said, and walked away before anyone could stop me. I went to the bathroom and locked the door behind me. I leaned against the sink and tried to catch my breath. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone and called my brother Carlos. "Carlos, I need you to come here now," I whispered. "Something is wrong," he answered after a few rings, his voice sleepy. "Elena, what is happening?" I told him about the $2,200 note and the voucher. He was silent for a moment, then said, "I will be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were wide, my face pale. I could hear the faint sound of laughter from the dining room, but it felt distant. I felt a deep fear that something terrible was about to happen. I left the bathroom and walked back to the table. As I approached, I saw the waiter standing behind my aunt, his hand on her shoulder. He whispered something in her ear, and she nodded. My heart pounded in my chest. The waiter turned to me and said, "Elena, could you come with me for a moment? There is something we need to discuss." I felt a cold knot in my stomach. I looked at my family, their faces a mixture of confusion and concern. I did not know what to do. I followed the waiter to a small side room. He closed the door behind us and turned to face me. His expression was serious, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flash of something else, recognition, maybe even pity. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. He handed it to me and said, "You need to take this. It will explain everything." I took the envelope with trembling hands. As I opened it, the lights flickered, and the sound of a phone ringing echoed through the room. The envelope contained a single photograph of a man I did not recognize, standing next to my Aunt Carla, both smiling. The caption read, "Business Meeting, June 2023. Before I could react, the door burst open, and a voice shouted, "Police! Freeze!" The police entered the room, their guns drawn. The waiter raised his hands, but his eyes never left mine. In that instant, I realized that the photograph was not the only secret hidden in that envelope. The door slammed open, and a voice shouted, "Police! Freeze!" If you love raw stories, hit the subscribe button now, because what happens next will hit you harder than any family dinner you have ever seen. I stared at the uniformed officers, their guns pointed at the man I had just followed into the side room. The waiter, Daniel, raised his hands, eyes locked on mine, as if he were waiting for me to make a move. "Detective Ramirez, what is the meaning of this?" Daniel asked, voice calm but edged with something I could not place. Ramirez ignored the question. "We have a warrant for the arrest of Carla Martinez on suspicion of fraud, money laundering, and attempted extortion." He turned to the rest of the diners. "Everyone stay seated. This will be over soon." My aunt's face went white. She tried to stand, but a uniformed officer placed a hand on her shoulder and pushed her back into her seat. The rest of my family stared, mouths open, as the reality of the situation sank in. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. The envelope in my hand seemed to burn. I opened it fully and saw, beneath the photograph, a folded piece of paper. It was a bank statement in my name, showing a deposit of $2,200 made the night before. The reference line read, "Carla, gift." My mind raced. The $2,200 note the waiter had slipped under my plate, the voucher for the resort, the sudden police raid, all of it was connected. "Detective, I think you need to see this," I said, holding up the statement. My voice was steady, a stark contrast to the tremor I felt inside. Ramirez took the paper, scanned it, and his eyebrows rose. "This is new." He looked at Daniel. "You want to explain why you were handing out money to a stranger?" Daniel's eyes flicked to me, then to the floor. "I was just following orders." "Orders from who?" Ramirez asked. Before Daniel could answer, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. The sound of a tray hitting the floor, glass shattering, and a muffled shout. Everyone turned toward the noise. A figure slipped out from behind the kitchen door, a man in a dark hoodie, his face partially hidden. He sprinted toward the back exit, but a second officer blocked his path. "Stop, police!" the officer shouted. The hooded man raised his hands, but a gun fell from his coat and clattered to the floor. Ramirez moved quickly, securing the weapon. He turned back to the table, his expression hardening. "Looks like we have more than one suspect tonight." The mid-story twist hit me like a punch. Daniel was not just a waiter. He was an undercover officer working a sting operation targeting my aunt and her associates. The $2,200 deposit was part of the evidence, a marked bill used to track illegal transactions. The voucher for the resort was a fake, created to lure my aunt into a meeting where the police could arrest her. "Carla, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud," Ramirez said, reading her rights. "You have the right to remain silent." My aunt stared at me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Elena, I did not mean for this to happen. I was desperate. The business was failing. I thought I could pay everyone back. I felt a cold wave of anger and sorrow. My family had always seemed perfect on the surface, but beneath the surface there were cracks that had been growing for years. Desperate enough to sell your own niece? I asked, voice low. You put a price on my head and tried to make me look like a thief. She shook her head, but the words fell flat. The police led her away, her hands cuffed behind her back. The rest of the diners sat in stunned silence, some whispering, others staring at their plates. The final twist came a few minutes later, when Detective Ramirez approached me with a small box. We found this in the kitchen, hidden behind the pantry door. It belongs to you. He opened the box to reveal a set of keys, a deed to a small house on the outskirts of town, and a letter addressed to me. I unfolded the letter and read, Elena, if you are reading this, the plan has failed. The house was always yours. Your grandparents left it to you when you were born, but your aunt forged the paperwork to sell it. The $2,200 was a bribe to keep you quiet. I am sorry for the pain I caused. Use this to start over. Your mother. My breath caught. My mother had known about the house all along. She had left the deed with a trusted friend, hoping that one day I would find it. The betrayal ran deeper than I ever imagined. My own mother had been complicit in the scheme, trying to protect the family's reputation while stealing from me. I felt the room spin. The police had arrested my aunt, but my mother's secret was now out in the open. The consequences were real. My father would lose his job because the delivery company would no longer trust him after the scandal. My brother Carlos would have to move back home to help with the fallout. The revenge I had imagined, exposing my aunt and the waiter, was only the beginning. The real revenge was the truth coming out, the house being returned to me, and the financial ruin of those who had tried to use me. I looked up at Detective Ramirez. What happens now? I asked. We will file charges against Carla and the others, he said. The house is yours. We will also investigate the forged documents. You may have to testify, but you are not alone. I nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over me. I turned to my family, who were still seated, eyes wide with shock. My father stood up, his face pale, and walked over to me. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Elena, I am sorry, he whispered. I did not know how to respond. Part of me wanted to push him away, but another part, the part that had survived years of being the quiet one, felt a flicker of compassion. The police escorted the suspects out. The diners began to file out, their faces a mixture of curiosity and relief. The restaurant staff started cleaning up the mess, the sound of broken glass echoing like a reminder of the night's events. I stayed seated for a moment, the box on the table in front of me. I opened it fully and took out the keys. The house was a small, two-bedroom bungalow with a porch that faced a quiet street. It was nothing like the fancy restaurant, but it felt like home. I stood up, feeling the weight of the keys in my hand. I walked to the door, where Daniel, now revealed as Officer Daniel Alvarez, was waiting. Thank you, I said, voice steady. For everything. He nodded. You did the right thing. The system works when people speak up. I left the restaurant with the box under my arm, the night air cool against my skin. The streetlights cast long shadows as I walked toward the house that was now mine. The fallout was swift. Carla was charged with fraud and sentenced to 3 years in prison. The forged deed was nullified, and the house was transferred to my name. My father's delivery license was suspended pending an investigation, but he found a job delivering groceries, something he said he enjoyed more than driving a truck. My brother Carlos moved back home temporarily to help with the house repairs, and we began to rebuild our relationship, slowly and painfully. The $2,200 that had started it all was used to pay for the first month's mortgage on the house. I donated the remaining money to a local nonprofit that helped victims of financial abuse. I started a blog to share my story, hoping that others would see that they are not alone. The blog grew into a support group, and I became a speaker at schools and community centers, warning about the dangers of hidden debt and family betrayal. One evening, As I sat on the porch of my new home, a neighbor stopped by with a plate of cookies. "I heard about what happened," she said. "You are very brave." I smiled, feeling a warmth that I had not felt in years. "I just wanted to be honest," I replied. "The truth is the only thing that can set you free." The emotional truth settled in me, simple and raw. Family can hurt you more than anyone else, but the truth can also be the key that unlocks the door to a new life. If you have ever felt trapped by family, by money, or by fear, know that you have the power to speak up, to fight back, and to rebuild. Thank you for staying with me through this. If you found this story powerful, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more raw, real stories.